Welcome back to today's episode of the Bad Influence Podcast. I'm Jordan Banderas, and on today's episode, I'll dive right into a challenging topic that many couples like to avoid. And this is something that I have done in my relationship, and what I'm talking about is how to support your partner when they have a big idea, big dreams, or anything they want to do passionately. This is something that a lot of couples actually like to sweep under the rug. Like they don't want to talk about it because it's hard to even talk about it. We don't know how the other person is going to feel. Sometimes we don't know how we want to be supported, and we don't even know how to vocalize it. And that's why I want to talk about this, because I honestly forgot about this issue in my relationship. But the other day, what happened was that my wife was browsing Facebook, just like anybody else out there. And she came across this post where this person was complaining about their spouse not being supportive and doing all these things where this other person was feeling unsupported by the spouse. After reading the post, my wife actually showed it to me. And I read it, and it looks like that what was happening was that one of the spouses in this situation was saving money to buy a house, and the other spouse was spending the money. So it looks like there was a lot of miscommunication. There was no support from one to the other because something was missing there. So my wife showed me this post. I was like, damn, we don't have that issue anymore because we were able to buy the house. We worked together, we supported each other. And one of the things that my wife did that surprised me a lot, she asked me if I ever felt supported during our marriage, or if I ever felt like I wasn't supported during our marriage. And to be honest, that particular question caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting it. So I didn't want to answer it, and I didn't know what to say because I didn't want my wife to feel attacked or offended or anything like that. Because what happened in this situation, and I had to be very honest to her, is that at the beginning of our marriage, I didn't feel supported. So I told my wife that it was a straight up no at the beginning of our marriage. She was surprised about that, but I had to open up to her. So I mentioned to her that at the beginning of our relationship, it was very challenging. I told her that the problem, or one of the main problems, was that I had a lot of baggage coming into the relationship, and some of that baggage was that I had never felt supported in my life. There was no support from my family, there was no support from anybody, or at least that's how I felt. I told my wife that when we got married, I wanted to create a better life for us. That's pretty much what I was aiming for, and I was striving for that. But I never felt supported because I didn't know how to vocalize that to her because of my past. I was like, well, I have never been supported, so I don't know how to request that support from her. So it was challenging, And another thing that happened during this particular period in my relationship was that in my mind, and probably this happens to a lot of people, I felt like she should have known what I wanted to do since she was my partner. It was like, in my mind at least, it was like she was a psychic and she could read my thoughts, my mind, and know exactly what I wanted to do without me telling her exactly what I wanted to do. But obviously that's not the case. So that caused a lot of friction, and it causes a lot of friction with couples, even in relationships with friends, or business partners, any type of relationship. If you think that your partner is supposed to read your mind and know exactly what you want to do without telling that other person, there's gonna be friction. So what happened at the beginning of my marriage is that I didn't know Katie had always been there for me, supporting me from day one. From the day that we said I do, she was there to support me. Because to me, this is the problem that I brought into this relationship. To me, support meant that she would have to do everything for me and be there for me all the time, even if she was busy. So she would have to literally drop everything and help me. Because growing up in my family, when someone asks for help or to be supported, they actually meant for the other person to literally do everything else for them. For example, I have receipts of this. My brother always bitches and moans about people not helping him or supporting him. But what happens with him is that he's always getting into trouble. He's always doing something stupid. He gets into this toxic relationships and does so much fucking dumb shit that sometimes he ends up in jail, sometimes he ends up paying a hefty fine, he owes money to people, and when he's cornered, he feels like we should help him. And the problem with that, or at least with him, is that if you don't help him, he gets mad at you. And then he's always like, oh, you don't like me, you don't love me, you were supposed to help me, all of these things. And I got tired of that, and that's why I cut communications with my family as well. Because my mom does that, my uncle does that, everybody in my family does that fucking shit. So I grew up thinking that was support, but that's not the case, and I know that now. After a long time. Because I'm gonna be 36. So I learned that, I would say like 3 years ago, maybe 4, maybe even less. But here's the thing. I have seen other couples actually act just like my family with each other. Where one person was full support, full cooperation, without the other person exactly knowing what is going on. They just want the other person to drop everything for them. And that's why I want to talk about this issue, because I have friends and other family members who do this as well. But my wife and I worked on this issue one day while we were arguing, actually. So while we were arguing, what happened was that I felt like she wasn't supporting me when I got the idea to start a podcast. So I had the idea, but I didn't know how to do it or explain it because I had never done it. So I just had the idea. I didn't have anything else. I didn't do any research. I was like, I'm going to start a podcast and Katie's going to help me. And the other things that didn't help was that my English wasn't as good. I didn't really know how to write. And in my mind, I told myself, and this was my mistake, that if Katie said that she supported me, which she did say that when I mentioned the idea of the podcast, then she would have to show me her support by doing what I couldn't do, which in this situation was pretty much everything. She would have to literally come up with topics, pictures, everything. That was the kind of support that I wanted. But obviously that's not support at all. That's just taking over. And one of the things that happened is that during this argument, I said to my wife, you know what, you're not supporting me. I told her that I thought you loved me. Yet, you don't do what I need you to do for me. When I said that, she looked at me like she didn't know what I was saying. And when I noticed that, or when I felt like that, I kept getting more and more frustrated. because of how she was looking at me. And I guess at one point, she actually must have seen that I was getting frustrated and finally understood that I didn't know what the word support actually meant. Because she stopped speaking, she literally looked at me directly in the eyes and said, "What is support to you?" That actually stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, what does support mean to you?" My answer obviously was what I mentioned before, which is based on what I saw growing up. So I told her all of that. And Katie, in this situation, actually told me, "I'm sorry you were raised that way, but that's not what support means." I was like, "It's not? Then what does it mean?" Because I guess I didn't know the real definition. And instead of her giving me the definition of the word, she actually had me look it up online. Which is kind of funny because she was all like, "You know what? You're going to look this up online and we're going to see if you're right or wrong." And at that moment, when she said that, I was like, "Oh, fuck, I am fucking wrong. I can feel it." So I looked for the definition, and per dictionary.cambridge.org, support is to agree with and provide encouragement to someone or something because you want him, her, or it to succeed. So my response after that, or my response after that, after finding the definition, was like, "Oh, fuck, I have had this definition wrong my entire life. No wonder why some of my relationships didn't work at all. Because I didn't know what support was. I wanted someone to be literally like a slave to me, which is not support. That's something completely different than what support is. Now, the definition that I just read is pretty much what my wife sees as support. That's how she supports me. But I didn't know that. And after learning this, I realized that my wife had supported me since we got married, like I mentioned, since day one. I just didn't see it that way. And I said to her how sorry I was because I was wrong due to the way I was raised. And ever since then, we haven't had any more arguments about the issue of supporting each other at all, which is good for our relationship. And I hope that after knowing the correct definition of the word support, maybe that can actually help with your relationship. But there are also other challenges I have faced with my wife in regards to this particular issue. And I see other couples encounter the same problems when supporting each other. Some of those other issues that we have encountered, and probably you have encountered as well, are miscommunications, like in my case, by not knowing exactly what support was or actually meant, there was a miscommunication. Another issue is that there are also going to be conflicting priorities. And what I mean by that is that this is when you want your partner to drop everything to help you because you feel like you are the priority. And definitely, sometimes you're not going to be the priority. And another thing that happened with us is that there was a lack of understanding. And this is when you need help explaining how you want to be supported, why you need your partner's support, and how you want to work on your ideas. But because we can't really vocalize it to the other person, they actually may feel like you're wasting their time. And I know that that's how my wife felt because she told me, it's like, sometimes I feel like you're wasting my time. And I got frustrated because I was like, I am not trying to waste your time. I just need help. But I didn't know how to say it. And I'm sure that there are other types of challenges you have also faced in your relationship or relationships in general. But these are the ones that I have encountered on mine. Now, based on what my wife and I faced, we also found solutions to these challenges in regards to supporting each other by working together. We learn about setting boundaries with each other. So if she can't help me because she's doing something else, I wait until she's done, and vice versa. She does the same thing. We also practice active listening, which is actually a skill that I had to learn. And for what I have seen online, there's a lot of people that actually need to learn this, because it involves going beyond simply hearing the words that the other person speaks, but also seeking to understand the meaning and intent behind them, which is very important, because if you don't understand that, then there's going to be miscommunications. And what's important about active listening is that it requires being an active participant in the communication process. So it requires you to be curious about what the other person is saying, so you can ask or clarify questions and understand what the other person is saying as well. I also learned, and this is important, I also learned to be patient and more empathetic to Katie because of her health issues. So if your partner has health issues just like mine, you have to be patient because they may not have the energy. You also have to be more empathetic so they understand that you can see that they're in pain. That's very important, especially with relationships like the one that I have, where my wife has illnesses and she can't really help me sometimes because she's too tired, she's in pain. So I have to understand that she needs her rest. So, in conclusion, if you're dealing with a situation like this, you need to sit down with each other and understand what support means. Because if you don't exactly know the correct definition of the actual word support, in this situation, when somebody's trying to support you on your idea, then both of you are going to be frustrated. And when you know that, when you understand the correct definition of this particular word, you can communicate effectively regarding supporting each other. You can say like, hey, this is how I want to be supported. I just need you to help me unravel my thoughts, which is something that my wife did. And I think that's kind of funny, because sometimes what I did when I understood the word support is that I told my wife, hey, I just want to unravel my thoughts. Don't say anything. Just let me talk. And I talk for hours sometimes. And then I will be able to unravel my thoughts. And I was like, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for just being there, letting me unravel my thoughts. Now I understand how I want to take this idea to the next level. That's one of the things that she did for me. We also you also have to set boundaries with each other, so you have your time and your partner has his or her time. Another thing that you also have to do is that you have to understand, and this is extremely important, you have to understand that there will be times when you won't be their priority. I know, that's hard, but you have to understand that. And also practice active listening, because when you do that with each other, both of you are going to feel heard when you're talking to the other person. And that actually helps the relationship. And the last thing I want to say about this, if you're having issues with your relationship or with any of your relationships, try to fix them before you post them on Facebook. The reason behind that, or the reason behind my opinion, is because when you do that, it gives others the opportunity to get their opinion about the issue, and that usually doesn't allow you to support each other, because now people are going to give you their biased opinion, they're going to give you biased information about your partner, and that's not going to be good for you. So that's what I wanted to share on today's episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the growth and the feedback. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The link is in the episode's description. And here are my final thoughts. Figure out what support means to your partner and create that support system from there. And have a great day.